All right, go ahead. I just started the recording, please.
Perfect. All right. Well, welcome. My name is Karen Dean. I'm from Reliant Credit Union, and today we're going to have a just a little presentation in reference to how you can make your budget work. Okay, so in this workshop, many of us struggle with savings. Budgeting does not come naturally to everyone, and most people find it a lot harder for it to do than way it sounds. Budgeting is a skill that's planning and preparation and are required in your part to make it work. So in this workshop, we will show you how you get financial goals, live within your means, and create and stick to a budget. So here's some of the things that we're going to cover. We're going to determine your personal obstacles to budgeting, create a form to track and analyze your spending, list your short and long-term goals, discuss the importance of debt reduction and emergency savings, and apply strategies to manage your day-to-day spending. So budgeting is a process of creating a plan and spending your money. Budgeting can help you live within your means. When you budget your money, you create a clear picture of where your money is going. And by using a budget, you can see where you might be spending too much money in certain areas and change your money habits to the future. Budgeting helps you to pay down debt. By reviewing your budget, you can set a plan to pay down your debt, and a budget can help you stay on track as you make payments to help you chart a path to get you out of debt. Budget helps you save for future emergencies. Budgeting can help you save money towards your financial goals. Plus, budgeting can help you in case you ever have unexpected financial emergencies, like a car breaking down or a surprise trip to an ER. If you budget an emergency savings, you won't have to put these expenses on a credit card. So what are the obstacles of budgeting? Do you think it would be A, it takes too much money, B, it's too complicated, and C, it's too stressful? So technically, here's a few of the answers of what come up in those. So all three are correct, that A, B, and C. But here are some common excuses people may make when it comes to budgeting. Do any of these apply to you? I don't think about the future. It's too complicated. It takes too much time. My income and spending is not consistent enough. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing. I have no self-control. Budgeting causes more stress than what it's worth. It's a hassle, and I can't keep up. So why start? Now to reflect on some of the obstacles and challenges that we have prevent us from creating and sticking to a budget, let's get into why we are here. You all want to get better at budgeting, but your motivators might differ. To really make a budget work for you, it's important to have financial goals to motivate you. Financial goals are personal goals to set yourself about and how to save and spend money. These goals can be both things you hope to achieve in the short term or things you plan on achieving further down the road. So let's talk about a short-term goal. These can be accomplished in a few months or up to 2 years. Examples for these would be paying off a credit card debt or saving for a vacation. So those medium-term goals can be accomplished in 2 to 5 years. Examples of buying a new car, making a down payment on a home, or paying off debt. And then, of course, our long-term goals can be accomplished in more than 5 years. Example being building a college savings funds or saving for retirement. But setting financial goals is a fun part of budgeting. In the next activity, you'll think about your own personal goals. How much do you need to save to achieve each goal, and how much time you have to achieve your goals? So if you turn to page 3 of your participant guide to the Setting Your Goals worksheet, for this activity, think about your personal goals, how much you need to save to achieve each goal, and how much time you have to build your savings. Determine how much money you need for that vacation and how many months you have to save that amount. For example, try to think of at least 3 goals that you would want to do, set for yourself. So once we think about these, we can start digging into and discussing how to budget effectively. The first step is getting organized and tracking your expenses. Keeping your financial documents and information organized and maintained is an important part of your financial health. You need this information to create budgets and to keep organized. Will help you maintain your finances more quickly in the future. What you'll need is all your sources of income, a record of your average monthly expenses. If possible, keep track of all your expenses for at least 3 months so that you know how much you spend on each item on average, and a list of your debts. Now we're going to work on some of the organizations of financing. First, you'll need to complete a list of all your net income. That's the amount in your paycheck after taxes and other deductions. If you're self-employed or work odd jobs, this is your adjusted income after quarterly self-employment taxes are taken out. But wages may not be your only source of income. You may also have receipt bonuses, child support, or other sources of aid or income. We've included a table where you can list your income in your participant guide on page 3. So take the time and list all your sources of income in the left side of the column and the amount you receive each month on the right. If the amount varies from month to month, try to determine an average for each source. Make sure you mention all sources of your income. Next, you'll need a record of your monthly expenses. This includes everything from housing to gas to entertainment expenses. Often you can access this information by looking through your bank statements and receipts. Some financial institutions may also offer this as an online feature on their website. There are many free tools to help you document your spending. There's the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, has an expense tracker on its website. Some computer software suites have spreadsheet templates you can use. There are free expense tracking apps you can download and use on your mobile device. Some financial institutions may also offer this feature on their online banking. And finally, there's always a good old-fashioned paper and pen method. You'll get more accurate picture of your average monthly spending if you track your expenses. You've included space for you to track your expenses. When you go through your expense list, make note of its items and consider it a want, something you have but could live without, or need, something you need to survive that you can't live without. So note at the bottom of the expense tracker that we've included a space for you to record your total debt. The only debt that should be recorded on the expense tracker is your mortgage, if you have one. You'll record other debt on the next worksheet on page 5. Once you've calculated your monthly debt, you'll apply your amount here. In this section, we'll ask for more information than just your debt and monthly payments. This is because knowing your API, the annual percentage rate, and balance can help you create a strategy for paying off your debt by taking into consideration the additional cost of interest on loans and other debt. For monthly payments, list what you usually pay each month for each debt. If the monthly payment on the debt varies, try to determine an average. So once you've listed all the debt, add up your monthly payments and apply that figure to the debt section of your expense tracker in the participation guide. So tracking your income, expenses, and debt is a great first step, but you can't stop there. In order to create an effective budget, you must analyze your spending. So once you've determined your total monthly income, your total debt, and your total monthly spending, you can calculate your discretionary income. Discretionary income is the amount left over after you deduct your expenses from your income. Figuring out your discretionary income shows you how much money you may be able to apply to your savings goal each month. Turn to page 5 of your participant guide and find that section titled Your Discretionary Income. To calculate that discretionary income, subtract your average monthly expenses, including debt, recorded in the expense tracker from your total income recorded in the source of income. I think most of you would say that we would want more. In order to get more, we need to take a better look at how we're spending our income. Have you ever heard of the 50-30-20 budget rule? So the 50-30-20 budget rule is a commonly quoted financial rule of thumb. The idea between 50-30-20 rule is that you should split your expenses into 3 categories: your wants, the needs, and your saving and debt. So 50% should go towards things you need to live, such as your rent, groceries, and utilities. 30% can be spent on things that you want but don't necessarily need, such as eating out, shopping, and entertainment. 20% should be applied to savings and paying down your debt. Paying down your debt does not include minimum payments. These are included in your needs. You need to pay at least the minimum so you're not penalized. The 50-30-20 rule aims to be a flexible strategy to use and manage your budget. So if you turn to page 6 of your participant guide and find the section titled the 50-30-20 budgeting rule, record your monthly net income at the top of this section. You can take it from the last section. Now you would calculate how much of your income you should apply to each category based on the 50-30-20 rule and record it in the boxes on the chart. Now that you have an idea of a recommended budget, you can figure out how close you are to following it by analyzing your expenses. Go back to your expense tracker, page 4, where you initially labeled your expenses as wants and needs. Now that we've done some quick calculations, on page 6 of your participant guide and locate the section calculating percentage spent for the needs and wants. Add up everything spent on your needs and wants and divide each of these by 2, total by your income. You should now have a good idea of how well you're following the 50-30-20 rule. So what do you do with this information? Well, if you're spending more than recommended percentages in your category, you may need to rework how your funds are distributed. If you're spending too much on needs, consider options for downsizing. For example, maybe your rent is too high for your current income, or perhaps you're spending a lot of costly food every month. Sometimes cutting from the needs category can be difficult, but often if we think they are needs, but actually fulfilling some wants as well. If you're spending too much on wants, maybe you're actually consuming too many afternoon lattes or taking too many weekend trips. Figuring out the spending habits that are preventing you from reaching your savings goal is something only you can do. Also remember, this is just one strategy you can use to make your budget work for you. However, this is not a hard and fast rule. You may live in an area where housing is very expensive, for example, or setting aside 20% of your savings goal may be too ambitious or controversially not enough. In a moment, we'll discuss about budgeting strategies to help you cut costs and stick to a budget. But first, we need to talk a little bit more about debt. Before we go to the debt, I always like to mention is I think a budget of like a diet, those little things that, you have to think about, that how you set a goal and having to keep on that goal. Sometimes we fall off it. And then, remembering we have to, get back on to reach the goals that we're looking for, that we set for ourselves. So paying down off your debt can be an important step towards achieving your financial goal. When we discuss paying off your debt, we focus on high interest debt like credit cards. Credit cards are usually the worst form of debt, but some loans can also have high interest rates also. Credit card debt may be very costly. If you work to pay off your debt, you'll probably be able to apply what you used to spend each month on your savings goal instead. There's two methods you can do to repay debt: the avalanche method and the snowball method. With the avalanche method, you first focus on paying off debt that is the highest interest rates first. So in this example on this slide, which debt would you pay off first when using the avalanche method? Would it be A, major credit cards, B, retail cards, C, personal loans, or D, student loans? And if we use to do the highest interest rate first, we're going to do A. We would look at doing the major credit card first. So if now we look at the snowball method, you focus on paying off your debts that carry the lowest balance. So again, in an example for this slide, which debt would you pay off first if you're using a snowball method? Would it be A, major credit card, B, retail credit card, C, personal loan, or D, student loan? With this one, we're going to pay the lowest balance. So we're going to look at B as being that retail card. So both methods have the advantages. For example, although you would save more in interest by the avalanche method, research has shown psychological factors that can play a role in paying off debt. Paying off a small balance can make you feel good about yourself and motivate you and continue paying down your debt. Whatever method you use, the important thing is to stick to the strategy and pay down your debt so you can begin freeing up more funds and put towards your savings goal. So speaking of a savings goal, does anyone remember what savings goal we included in our setting your goals worksheet on the participation guide? One of those is the building an emergency fund, which was listed right on top. How many of you have ever experienced a financial emergency? May that May that, I mean, something unexpected happening that required a large sum of money. Emergencies happen. It's a part of life. A report at the Duke University predicted that over half of the US households will experience at least one financial shock averaging $2,000. Sometimes emergencies can even be more expensive. Think of these questions. What would happen if I lost my job? What do you do when you have an emergency that you can't cover the funds in your bank account? How do you cover your expenses when you don't have any income? Many of us end up using credit cards. Using credit cards may pay an emergency, could lead to a downward spiral of debt because of the more debt you incur, the higher your monthly expenses and the less you can put towards your savings goal. To prevent yourself from the spiraling debt, experts recommend maintaining an emergency savings that covers at least 3 months of living expenses. This probably sounds like a significant amount, and it may be impossible right now. That's important for you to save something, even if it's $500 that will ease that burden in event of emergency savings. Another important thing to consider when planning for emergencies is to make sure that you have insurance that could cover expenses during an emergency. Insurance that you can protect you against emergencies, including health insurance, car insurance, renter's insurance, short-term disability insurance, and homeowners insurance. So let's go back to the goal sheet that we filled out for your emergency savings. Turn to the expense tracker on page 4 of the participant guide and look at your average total monthly expenses. Decide how many months you feel comfortable saving for and multiplying that by your average total monthly expenses. So remember, some of these listed expenses are wants. In event of a long-term emergency, you'll probably cut these expenses considerably, so your overall monthly expenses would be less. For this reason, you may decide to use only what you spend on needs in this calculation. But this figure is, put this figure in the second column next to building your emergency savings in the setting your goals table on page 3. Then decide how long you think you need to save this amount. Paying down your debt and creating an emergency savings fund is a great way to reduce your expenses so that you can free up funds for your savings goal. But there are many other strategies that you can do to save money. Some involve changing your habits and some involve changing your mindset. Let's take a look over some of these strategies. Before we discuss the first strategy, let's have a little challenge. I want you to think about what your spending habits are. So when freeing up your funds, where do you think is the best place to look? Do you think it would be your wants, or do you think it would be your needs? Reducing your wants is an excellent way to free up some funds, but the best way is one that many people don't even think about. When we really want to focus on freeing up funds, often the best place to look isn't the coffee or bar habits, it's your bigger expenses, especially those in the needs category. Now that we're going to do another, now we are going to do another reflection. This time we're going to go through your expenses and really think about what you can do to free up some of those funds. When you list your expenses and the amounts you should cut from the table labeled cutting expenses on page 7 of your participant guide. Here you record where you think you can make some cuts in your expenses. In this section, we will talk about some more everyday strategies they can use to free up some funds. So the first place to look is your reoccurring expenses. There are policies that you agree to and to contracts you sign and then often forget about. How many of you shopped around for car insurance? Contacting multiple companies to compare their rates. That's pretty standard practice, but when it comes to following up, even most responsible of us can get a little unfocused. How many of you get new quotes every year? I'll use myself as an example. I haven't quoted out in a while. I recently sold my house and I relooked at my car insurance because I thought it was extremely high. I was paying $3,000 a year for 2 vehicles, and I contacted a new agency and was able to reduce that in half. The exact same coverage of what I had. The only difference is that one of my children have left the house. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but if I didn't even think about it, they wouldn't have, I wouldn't have known that I could save so much money. So it pays to check out. It doesn't cost you anything. If anything, it's going to save you some money. How many of you have subscribed to services like those shopping, gaming, music, or meal delivery? And how many of you have had subscriptions that you pay for that you don't use or often enough or warrant the cost? If any of these situations sound like yours, you're not alone. Once we have a subscription or policy, we have a tendency to become more content and just stick with it because it's what we've been doing. Think about all the things that we may have subscribed during the pandemic. Maybe we added some streaming subscriptions, and maybe now things have more opened up and you're not using those subscriptions. You may want to consider removing some of those. In any of these situations, it sounds like yours, you're not alone. Once we have a subscription or policy, we have a tendency to become content and stick with it because it's what we're doing. I think I already read that. But the second place to look is your more costly purchases, cars, homes, televisions. How many of you shop around when buying these larger items? Right, most of us do. The problem here isn't shopping for the best deal. Not really. It's in making the right decision. Some experts claim that Americans are serial overspenders, often spending more than they can afford, especially for bigger ticket items. We buy too much house, or we get the latest version of our cell phone, even though our older version just works just fine. It's important to reward ourselves, but we also need to realize when we're giving into present bias, allowing short-term rewards to take precedence over more important long-term goals. So here's some tips that you can use when shopping to free up some funds. Use coupons. Look for websites devoted to coupons and find coupons for places and products you already purchased. Use the clearance aisle. Sometimes clearance products are just off season or just may not have a small packaging defect. If you can find something in the clearance aisle that you wouldn't normally purchase anyways, and it's marked down 50 or 75%, it's worth checking it out. Use markdown sites. The same goes for discount and clearance websites. Often the same products offer the retail sites or offer discounted sites for much less. Buying in bulk. Another strategy is buying items in bulk. When buying items bulk, you're paying more upfront, but the cost of a simple item is much less than you purchase one at a time. Get it when it's hot. The last tip requires a change in your purchasing mindset. Most of us purchase things when you need them, rather than buying them when you'll need them later or when they're on sale. Maybe your anniversary is in 3 months, but you see the perfect gift of the reduced price today. Consider buying it if you have the extra income. The savings you can occur by buying things when you see them on sale makes up for having a little less storage space in your closet. So these are some money tips that financial experts most commonly recommend, but I bet there's tips that many of you use that we didn't discuss. Some workplaces offer a form of, it's called RARES, a card that you can get discounts on. I get an email every month, or I think it comes actually every week. I don't travel a lot, but there's, one restaurant that's always on there and it's not far from me. And I have used the card, I get 10% discount on it. So I have a tendency to use that restaurant just because of the added discount. Plus it has good food, just not the discount. So think about different sites that you may be able to get, discounted for free. So unfortunately, planning on is only half the battle. The real challenge is what comes next. The hard part is sticking to your budget and continuing to implement those money saving strategies. Just like any reward in life, it takes discipline and motivation. But there are also some little hacks that we can help you to make it a little easier. This will be the focus of the next section of the course. So the first strategy is combination of mindset and habit. You see, experts in many different fields recognize people respond much better to rewards than they do to punishment when it comes to changing their behaviors. You may find that budgeting is less of a chore or punishment if you provide yourself with a short-term incentive for savings. Instead of putting all your discretionary income towards your medium goals and long-term savings goal, use a percent of it to treat yourself to something special each week or month, such as a nice dinner, an expensive bottle of wine, or a video game. Another strategy focuses on our tendency to avoid things that are too difficult. Just like we may spend less, it may be more difficult to spend, we'll save it if it's too difficult to save. So make it easy by making it automatic. So some tips are: sign up to have a portion of your paycheck go into a designated savings account every month. Have your retirement contributions come directly out of your paycheck or checking account. Set up automatic bill paying. Once you have paid your balances on your credit card, sign up for automatic payments and pay the balance off entirely each month. This will prevent you from owing interest, and you'll earn points if you have a rewards card. A third strategy is, this one involves creating bucket lists for your savings goals. Researchers show that it's more difficult to save for a specific goal if you're using your checking account or even a checking and savings account. Instead, create specific accounts for each saving goal. These will use to designate investment accounts to save for retirement, invest in products designed for medium savings goal. Name your savings account for the goal that they're being used for. And then finally, strategy number 4, use technology to your advantage. Research mobile apps and online sources that can help you track your spending, manage your finances, and pay bills. These are even apps that remind you your bills are due or alert you when your funds in your checking account are low. So when you have time, you may consider setting up an appointment to meet with your financial institution representative to learn more about services and products available to help stick with your budget. Because remember, it's easier to budget, the more likely it is that you'll do it. Be sure to maximize all the tools and strategies at your disposal. We're always here to help. So in summary, there are a variety of tips and strategies to help you free up your funds and stick to your budget. Pick the ones that are best suited for you and your needs and your lifestyle. The more important thing is to remember is that budgeting is not a punishment. With motivation and the right attitude, budgeting may bring you the rewards of your financial freedom. Thanks for listening.